We have Elisa from Armenia, myself and Mohammed from India, currently representing a youth standing group. So the question that we wanted to discuss today was what exactly we have done in this year, especially with respect to the Global Digital Compact, which was released by the United Nations, and our submission for the Global Digital Compact. Along with that, for the IGF in Tokyo 2023, what is coming up, and a few exciting opportunities that are planned for that. So with respect to the IGF working groups, so the youth standing group creates working groups and working subgroups committees, which are formed annually and are headed again by volunteer members who want to be a part of the youth standing group working group committee members. And they work on session proposals. We reach out to people whose proposals have been accepted in the past. We ask them for insights. We organize informational webinars. So if anyone who's a new member who wants to learn and has no idea where to start, so this is ideally the place to be for you to understand and not feel so lost or confused, because it can get overwhelming when you look at the list on the UN website, right? So this is a brief background of Global Digital Compact. Mohammed, can you explain about it a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Muhammad. I'm the Secretary of the USG. Could you please reshare these slides?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, the United Nations, the United Nations taken where they should call for inputs for global digital compact this year only, and we decided to collect the inputs from the youth. And after that, because we represent a youth body that spans all over the globe, so we formed a Global Digital Compact subcommittee, and then we created a month-long input process wherein we took comments from members and other youth leaders. And then we concluded that into around 15 pages of receipt paper. And then we also submitted a few, there was an additional Global Digital Compact input.
Thank you. A little bit of a background. This work was again not done by the youth standing group alone. This is where we reach out to other youth groups like the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance, Youth for Internet Governance. All these are organizations which tend to help us out and contribute as and when possible according to their voluntary time requirements. So one thing that we did was we set up various position committees, subcommittees for the particular sections of the Global Digital Compact heads. And for example, the issue of connecting all people to internet, including schools, we would issue a Google form, which then would invite responses in about 150 to 300 words from individual stakeholders, which then, because ChatGPT had just gotten popular, extremely popular, we all had to run them through and figure out whether they were AI generated. And the working committees, a lot of tasks went through that. After that, we would keep a few high-level comments, and then we would put them in the form of a report, ask the exact authors, reach out to them if they wanted to contribute, modify their position, or if they were okay with the current position that we were putting out, the sentence framing, etc., and if they wanted to be named as the contributors of the report. So finally, the report was submitted to the United Nations website, to the United Nations, and it's currently one of the recommendations that is submitted on the website. The link to that is available in the program itself. I've put that in the session proposal. So if you open the session proposal form, it will lead you to the UN website where you can access our report. Mohammed, you want to talk about the Youth Atlas a little bit, please?
Yeah, I'm just facing a little bit of connection issues. I'm unable to, yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the, this has been like a project that has been ongoing for the past 1 year. We started the Youth Atlas 2.0 during the IGF 2022 by conducting a series of interviews, on-site interviews during the IGF. So the premise of Youth Atlas is that we want to collect the inputs from the youths from all over the world who have been actively involved in the internet governance ecosystem and just get a sense of what is going on and what could be improved. And then we also celebrate the individuals who have been very active by featuring them in the Youth Atlas, which is a sort of yearbook. So yeah, we are into the second edition this time, and it is almost complete. The digital version is complete. We are already talking about getting it printed, and we will launch it during the IGF in Kyoto. So the greatest thing about the Youth Atlas is that it has received the endorsement of the whole community. When Sir Anya Gango, everyone, they have highly recommended it, and we plan to launch it during the IGF. And yeah, we will have physical copies as well as digital copies for anyone who is there on site during the IGF.
Thank you. So one of the nice things that Mohammed's too modest to tell you about is that the preface has been written by none other than the father of internet, and the things that he has to say about the next generation or the youth on the internet is something really valuable. And I would urge all of you to just check it out whenever, if you're in Kyoto in 2023 in the next couple of months. If not, we will definitely release it online, so we can definitely see that. And the next is future opportunities. These are for the youth community, but we all belong to the youth community. We all belong so this is something that we want to talk to you about. So Mohammed, please,
Yeah, so last year, because we were trying to increase the networking between youths from all around the world. So we observed that usually the sessions are like not youth focused. So we decided to organize a youth social event. So this year we have received the sponsorship of Internet Society and a lot of other local organizations, and we are throwing a big party to all the youths, exclusively to the youth, sorry, everyone else. And it will have a lot of food, a lot of drinks, music by professional DJs and everything. And you all are invited. It will take place during the first day of IGF. So yeah, you're all welcome, and it will be a great place to just connect with other youth leaders from everywhere around the world and just form the bond and just collaborate, just talk about everything that we have done and just learn from each other. So I hope that most of you will be there. Here we will meet you on.
Come for internet governance, stay for the party. So yeah, that is one. The second exciting update is, remember in the early first sections of the screen, I showed you about the current youth, board membership of the youth standing group. The re-elections are scheduled early next year, which means the nominations, etc., and the entire process will start towards the end of this year. Again, since this is a committee, you have to recommend it as a group. So you have to be a group of people who are looking at different positions, who are looking after these positions, and they're trying to contest. So this is something that is upcoming. So if there's any question that you want to reach out, or if there's any contribution, any help that you want about how to make your pitch, about what sort of introductions to put, and how you can sort of further and show us that these are the reasons why you should get elected and all of that, it'll be great. And the voting, etc., all of that takes place through the formal ISOC process. So it'll be amazing to see a lot of new Asia Pacific youth members to contest and to get through the election, because typically the representation of Asia Pacific members is a little lesser compared to the rest of the communities, and we're trying to change that. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have the showcase in the first place, is because for you to know that you can contest, and anybody who's interested in the field of internet governance, who's passionate and who wants to bring a change in this community, can actually contest. So this is something that I wanted to talk to you about. And yeah, so apart, the elections are happening, and yeah, they have to formulate a vision document. So if there's anything that you want with respect to how you want a vision document to look like, what sort of aspirations you should put in it, you can always reach out to any one of us, and we'd be more than happy to help you about how our vision document was, what sort of things we put in it, what sort of roles and responsibilities it entails, and we'd be happy to help you out. And the last one is that you can join us. This is a budding community. We are always, there's something new to discuss. Someone has a very strong opinion on it. And since we have so many members, there are usually two contradictory opinions in the room. So there's always a lot of discussion happening on every issue. We work together to develop policy papers and publish them. So the Global Digital Compact was just one example of what we do. Something similar to that is these days countries, when they come up with legislations to govern the internet or the privacy of the country and their citizens, they try to open them for comments and for multi-stakeholder comments, and they try to make it a little more inclusive. At least it's a step in the right direction. So we tend to submit our comments as a group, and we try to make those positions heard. And we organize regular events, coordinate IGF youth tracks, regional IGFs. We try to participate, and we try to make sure that any priority that we think is important and is being overlooked or is being not prioritized to the extent that we want, we try to bring that to the forefront, and we like to discuss that. So if you want, you can scan the QR code, or these are the websites. You can look into any one of these, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. Individually, we are more than happy to get connected with you and help you if you want any specific help in one of these sectors. And yeah, the board elections and the IGF party are the two most exciting upcoming events, and consider this as an open invitation for all of you to either contest for the elections or come to the party. And that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, you'll see me floating around. You can always reach out to me. Thanks, Mohammed. Thank you so much for joining. Everybody online, it's really sweet that you did.
Thanks, Shradha. That was a great presentation. You really presented us very well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. No question. Oh, hi. Sorry, I miss you.
So the next showcase session will be starting in 4 minutes for guests here, just to let you know. The next showcase will be Ambivalence in Fulfillment of Internet Access in West Papua, Civic Society Experience Share.
Okay, we have online moderator, Miss Tessa. Maybe you can start. think she's already joined. Yeah. Tessa, can you open your camera, please? Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the showcase titled Ambivalence in Fulfillment of Internet Access in West Papua based on civil society experiences. I am Tessa and I will be the moderator for this showcase. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our speaker, which are Mizele Torrey from Chairwoman Papua RTIK Women, Harun Rubara from Papuan Voices Community, Pandey from Lead Researcher and Digital Security SAFEnet, and also Unggul Sagena from Head of Internet Access SAFEnet. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Unggul Sagena, to start the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Tessa. I will be quick because we have three West Papuan that will share their experience because our research is about them. So I will give most of the time in this 20-minute session for them to speak for global community. So yeah, the idea that we have three objectives for the research, and we conducted research a few months ago. And then the justification, there are two justifications for doing this research. First, the knowledge gaps that not many research about the people in West Papua and their experience, especially for civil society in West Papua. And also, there are urgent issues that we have to focus on. We had 5 places at that time to conduct this research, and also with the local community, local civil society organizations, and also from West Papuan from other regions. And these are some of the findings. We call it, first we call it, there is an ambivalence in the fulfillment of the digital infrastructure in West Papua. This is part of the larger project or larger research. It's about the digital rights actually, but today we discuss focus on the very basic is the internet connectivity and access to the people of West Papua. And these are some of the voices. You can read more on our research later on. So you can see these are the experience that we capture. And there are 4 indication or findings. First is integration of the Palaparing broadband project. It's the fulfillment from the government, and we can see that there are still many violations, and there are patterns that some parties violate these digital rights. And also we have the construction of 4G BTS in West Papua, but you can see also the violation and the patterns. The availability of the 4G service access, we have 4G there in West Papua, but you can see there are many violations and the patterns also. And also we have the digital transformation going on in the West Papua as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But you can see also there are some limitation and violation and the patterns that according to our research and to civil society experience. Okay, so before I move to Mizele Torrey from West Papua, here we have also Andy. He is the lead researcher and also native West Papuan that will share his experience in conducting the research on the ground. Andy, please.
Thank you. This experience was meaningful to me, although there were some things that weighed on me. I experienced some obstacles and challenges. The obstacles were related to situation, terrain, and distance that created some gaps. Some of the interviews were in the situation that were difficult to meet in person, either because they are experiencing political situation, military operation, and other things. In some target location, that terrain is difficult to reach in person. Likewise, distance and access are always the main obstacles. Of course, communication can be tools, intermediary, but it will different to meet and see in person. Honestly, the research has not talked about what is happening in full. It has not explored what is happening in all areas of West Papua. The situation in its region is different. The different situation actually demand contextually answer in its region with different condition. Such is the situation, some of which has been revealed through the findings in the research. During my research, I directly experienced 2 times when the internet and telephone were turned off at the research location. Whereas in other places, they were not. People still had good access. This illustration, the poor internet access in West Papua. Access can be turned off at any time. We can block that. To uncover this is a big challenge, and this part is what the research like. This research is just a snapshot and helicopter view for happens in West Papua. Yet, honestly, it could not tell us more deep about the situation of internet access in West Papua. As such, it leaves an empty space that need to be filled, and doing that just present at great challenges to feel responsibility for addressing what remain unexplored in this research. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Abby, are you ready to share?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, place is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay, thank you for time introduce myself of everyone. I'm come from the city of Jayapura in West Papua. Daily active as digital literacy activity on the Papua ICT Volunteers Organization. My role and also that all friends is at the time. The internet is disconnected or disconnected by the government. We as volunteers encourage and strengthen digital literacy movement for you. You are not trapped or consumed by hawks, provoking or exacerbating the grand situation. Furthermore, we also encourage capacity building in this because the wizard network intelligence we do this so that we can offer internet access by passing the wizard service. Started in this movement, we foster is in women's organization and initiative volunteers that focus on digital leadership with we call from Milpic. Volunteers, the purpose of this organization is to stay and make women aware of the all of women to participate in starting digital leaders in the West Papua until now. This women is become a victim of the steering of from the report development of the genocide and in Papua. We are always reminded that women are in the family is hard. So women are on that with in care to continue to be stagnant to the visit together. Second, the digital literacy movement that was all for me. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, Abby basically sharing about the Papuan women. They are engaged with the VSAT installations and digital literacy to the school, even in the condition with when the internet was shut down. As you can see, this is self-explained because she is live from West Papua, and other speakers also having difficulty to connect because he is also live from West Papua. So is he already? Yeah, okay, let's check. Aaron, are you ready? So we I mean the Papuan, they have to go to some places that can connect the internet stable, so they cannot rely their own signal. Yeah, and also this is what's going on, and yeah, we are still waiting for Harun to share about his experience, especially documenting the rally in the 2019, where the government shut down the internet in the whole region. Yeah, so I think it's also important to hear what he wanted to say to us. And while we're still waiting, I think I can keep the mic back to Tessa. Maybe there are some questions online. Or Tessa, can you handle the Q&A maybe while we're waiting for Harun, if he can join us today?
Okay, because we're still waiting for our speakers, Harun. Maybe if you guys have any questions, please write down in the chat box or raise your hand if you come on site. Oh, here we are. The questions, Mr. Unggul.
There are questions?
Still. Oh, we still got no questions.
You can read if there's a question, or maybe guys have questions to Andy here. You can also answer your questions. Andy, can you explain a bit more, maybe on behalf of Harun, because you also experience this kind of conditions and it's almost every day happening. So you can tell us a little bit more, and then I can translate it if you have difficulty to speak in English.
Brent Carey. I'll just ask a question to fill some time. Is that right? Oh, great. I was just curious about internet shutdowns in Indonesia, and is that a regular occurrence, and how often does that happen for you?
Yeah, but the internet shutdown as a policy, actually in 2019 we have three times, and then some global organization also recorded, because like the Pulse Lab, for example, However, at that time we sue the government, and then in 2020, the court decision was that the government was illegal to do this kind of policy again. So at that time, we also, I mean, the civil society also asked the president to apologize, but the court said that it's not necessary. But this kind of policy cannot be become a policy from the government again. And however, if you are saying about the condition that's still happening, yeah, we experience it. It's still happening, but it is not a policy. Sometimes it's because of the technical problem. I can show you. Where is it? Yeah. These are the capture of what the people saying on the ground, that if the pattern is the same, if indeed there are technical reasons, then must be disclosed to the public. Sometimes they're saying that there's trouble in the cable connection, undersea cable connection, because like we have here one of the fulfillment, like yeah, the Palapering broadband project is now integrated, so it makes like the internet better. However, sometimes, and SAFEnet also every month monitor this kind of disruptions. Sometimes we found out that there are they said technical problems in the sea cable, and then sometimes like the cable was cut like that. Then people saying that, oh, how this is happening while we have some moments in the, like political rally, or some government official come to the West Papua at that time. Maybe we have 4 minutes. Andy can explain more.
Di beberapa tempat yang paling sering dilakukan itu ada semacam kalau ada semacam konflik tertentu terjadi di wilayah-wilayah tertentu, itu sebenarnya pemutusan masih sering terjadi, dan kalau menggunakan alasan-alasan yang berkaitan dengan ada kabel laut diputus dan segala macam, itu biasanya terjadi tidak masuk akal karena pematian atau pelambatan internet itu hanya terjadi di beberapa tempat tertentu saja, yang itu secara tidak langsung itu tidak berjarak untuk terhubung dengan laut.
Okay, basically, Andy, I think that this kind of shutdown or slowing down on whatever whatever happening, what we call in shutdown, is not actually like a blackout, but sometimes just slowing down the social media. Sometimes in the certain places they cannot access. It's quite suspicious for them if it's about the technical problems always happening, and sometimes it's too far from the sea. What Andy just said, that is too far from the sea, and some kind of this disruption is happening. This is only to close this session. I want to say that this is only one piece of the whole problems there, because we are talking about the very basic things. It's connectivity, the access. We don't talk about the freedom of expression. We are not talking about the digital attack to the activists. That in the research it is. We capture this kind of violations, even though, like Andy said, it is not really dive deep into the, because it's very large area, and then this research only cover 4 or 5 agencies, and we have to focus more on these issues, because it's still happening. I mean, like even now we cannot connect with one speaker from West Papua because of these connections. I think that's my conclusion. Andy, you have something more to say in the 1 minute? Okay, no, so I will give back to Tessa. Tessa, thank you very much for your coming to the session.
Okay, finally now we have reached
1.5 minutes.
the showcase. Okay.
Be quick, sorry, because we only have 1 minute. But yeah, first, please.
Okay, thank you for the information. I'm Isan. There's something that I must to confirmation here. The maps that you show that the West Papua that you mentioned here is the best on Indonesian province, or it's just like Kompas area, that the first one. And about the connectivity, that we know that there are no regular shutdown currency. It's just because maybe that is palaparing that use a fiber optic on the deep ocean. So when it shut down and have a technical issues, it can shut the internet down, and it must use special treatment and accommodation to prepare it to back to life, and it have a schedule too, so it's not a regular issue, I think. And then are you have any discussion with government about these issues before, and if I may know where which government that you discussing it about? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so because of we runs out of time, we will answer your questions outside. So I will give you back to Tessa, and then we can talk about this outside. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for all of the speakers and all of the attending. So if you have any questions or want to discuss something, please kindly contact our speaker, Mr. Unggul Sagena. Thank you so much.
Kia ora tātou katoa, ko Sean Lyons, taku ingoa. Hello, my name is Sean Lyons. I'm from NetSafe New Zealand. Thank you all for being here, and thank you specifically to the APrIGF Organising Committee for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today about our work in industry voluntary self-regulatory codes to promote the reduction of harm online. I want to talk to you a little bit about the context and the work that we did, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Brent to talk a little bit about how the code plays out in practice and what some of the future hopes are for the code itself. I should explain just in the context, we're from New Zealand. This code operates in New Zealand. New Zealand's a country of just over 5 million people with very high internet usage and penetration. And thanks to some research from our friends at Internet New Zealand, we know that it's a country of people that are largely happy with the internet they use. 84% of people, sorry, I got the number wrong on that slide, think that the internet is on the whole a positive place. So that's the context in which we work, and the work that we've done is set. NetSafe's role originally, one largely in that context of education, originally primarily through the education sector, through schools, but then increasingly through public education and awareness. And that was largely in terms of talking about the online challenges, the risks that people experience, and how they manage and mitigate those. Increasingly over time, however, NetSafe's role went from one of education to one of more direct response as the complexity of the tools in which people used online and the complexity of those risks or challenging situations increased. Our role became more about helping people, guidance directly in managing the online harm situations that they experienced. And that increased right through until the point where New Zealand established direct legislation to try and reduce online harm. Harmful Digital Communications Act was passed in 2015 and came into operation in 2016. NetSafe has a statutory function under that act to deal with, to receive complaints from individuals and assist them in the removal of that harm. It has both a civil and a criminal sanction. We help people with the civil part. The police, obviously, are those that challenge with the criminal sanctions. But even with what was at the time groundbreaking, I think, legislation to deal with online harm, we saw increasing situations where even that legislation wasn't able to help people deal with the kinds of harms that they faced. An example would be the idea of mass harassment or brigading, where a pylon, if you like, where people would single out an individual and create harm scenarios for them online. The legislation as it stands requires people to make a complaint for every single one of those harms. So you can imagine the scenario where tens or hundreds of people pile on. That legislation then becomes very difficult to manage for that particular harm situation. So it was obvious, or becoming obvious to us at that time, that whilst that legislation was in place, what we required was more. There was more needed to help people in situations. And, not to besmirch legislation itself, but legislation takes a long time. It took a long time to achieve legislation in the country of that form. The idea of change and modification becomes even more difficult if we rely only on legislation. And so that's where the beginnings of discussion around a self-regulatory, an industry self-regulatory code began, in the hope that what it would do was allow people to get over those situations, which we increasingly saw where despite them experiencing harm, and that harm might be directed at them, or it might be, increasingly as it was, the result of national or even international online harm incidents, it was becoming harder for them to deal with those directly because of the nature of the incident itself. So we had to ask ourselves, well, there were several questions that we needed to solve. How do we make a change across the entire online safety system? Because that was what we were needing to do. We had legislation in our country, we had activity in our country, but it needed more than that. We needed to go from those reactive scenarios, those reactive measures that we had, to be able to deal with these increasing situations that were where what was required was a more proactive approach right across the system, not just at a particular platform or a particular individual, but how do we achieve that right across the system? The second question, although you can't see it, was how do you adapt to that change at the speed of the internet, at the speed at which it's required as those situations unfold? Legislation, like I said, can't be expected to take up the slack in that situation. How do we adapt what's needed at that speed and pace? Somebody couldn't flick on 2 slides for me, could they? And the third question is, how do we meet the demands of what's going on locally when actually what we're talking about is a global environment? When we're talking about working with transnational countries, transnational companies, and yet we're looking at how that, how does international law apply? How does local law apply? To give you a very obvious example, think about COPPA and age 13 and how that defines what a young person is and the privacy implications for that. What if that definition actually contravenes the local definitions of what a young person is, or changes the way in which privacy laws are applied in a particular country? That's what led us to the development of our Code of Practice for Online Safety and Harm. So that process began in July 2021, and just about a year between that period and the first signing and the signing and release of that code, a process of development with the industry, with civil society and government groups in consultation, and a period of public consultation before the development of that code and its release, launch in July 2022. There were lots of questions that came as part of that public consultation, far-reaching questions from implications for freedom of speech to censorship, to government overreach, even though this wasn't a government project. But there's one question I think I can kind of summarize that was put forward by an awful lot of people, which is why an industry code? Why is this development happened in concert with industry? And I think that there's a kind of obvious answer, and it answers the first of those questions that we posed, which is how do you deal with this situation right across the system? You have to invoke the locus of harm, maybe with the individuals, but the place in which the activity to reduce that harm was going to take place was with the industry, was with those platforms, and therefore that was the focus of where that activity should take place. The other reason is that the industry were already engaged right across the world in a number of other similar or aligned code processes, whether that be the industry, government, civil society. There were an awful lot of codes out there being developed and in play that we could learn from, where the industry were often already signatories of. So that's I guess the other answer to that question. This was a path that had already begun to be trodden, and we could learn from that process and hope that our code could answer some of those questions that we had specifically. So I'm going to pass over to Brent to talk a little bit more about how the code is in practice and what some of the future vision for that is.
Thank you, Sean. That's 8 minutes down, so we'll try and leave some time for questions. Kia ora katoa, ko Brent Tokoingoa. I'm the CEO of NetSafe, and about the principles. So we have 5 signatories that have agreed to the code. So that's Meta, TikTok, Amazon, Twitch, YouTube, Google, and Twitter. And those 5 signatories have worked on, as Sean said, multiple versions of the code. And importantly, it is sort of the first of its kind because it does try and be all-inclusive with some of the harm types. So New Zealand doesn't have hate speech. It's been referred to the Law Commission, and this code is looking at that as a gap, and it has included a definition of hate speech. New Zealand is also grappling with mis and disinformation, and we don't have a regulatory backstop for that. And this code importantly includes mis and disinformation in the definitions. And those principles too, we worked with Tangata Whenua also to look at a Māori perspective, and some of that is woven into the code as well in relation to some of these guiding principles. Importantly too, the code is a living and breathing document. And as Sean said, it's only been in effect it takes effect in its first year. So July 2023, 1 year on. And last month, the Oversight Committee of the code was appointed. And importantly, that Oversight Committee is made up of civil society, industry, iwi, so Māori, and it is in their voluntary capacity sitting as the governors of the code to shape the code. So that oversight board is voluntary, and it will make recommendations on how the code should be adopted going forward. And last month I was appointed the chair of the oversight board for the committee, and we're working on our first meeting coming up in person. We also have an administrator of the code, which is New Zealand Tech, which is the tech industry which actually administer the code. And that's a mechanism, again, to ensure greater oversight. We also have an independent reviewer that will review the code as well, and that is yet to be appointed. And that's another way to try and bring some transparency to the code practice. Importantly, all of the platforms agreed to produce benchmark reports for what was happening on the platforms in relation to these particular processes, etc. And all those benchmark reports are available at the New Zealand Tech website. And for New Zealand, it was really the first time New Zealand had ever seen some localized data around Meta in particular, around what was happening for New Zealanders on the Meta platform. And so those benchmark reports are really important as a bit of a guiding principle. And each platform will produce their first reports, their first transparency reports in October, by October this year. And those reports will be publicly available as well. It's important too that there be a complaints mechanism for the public, and that complaints mechanism is a big part of this code, but it's not about people making individual complaints about content. It's about, because there's already a system to deal with that. It's about people having the right to make a complaint if the processes and the policies that the platforms say that they have in place to tackle these harms aren't up to standard. And so, again, last month on the NZ Tech website, the complaints process for the public, that has opened. And so we get to see the complaints come through, but now the public have a mechanism to make a complaint about that. The code is about transparency. It is about the industry and civil society and a whole of society approach working together for improvements. I think I've said it's a living, breathing document. It is just a dialogue, and also the government in New Zealand is currently looking at our safer online services. So again, what that might look like, but the government said that legislation won't be here till 2026 at its earliest. And again, as we all know, people are being harmed every day on a platform now. So what do we do in the meantime? And we think a voluntary code approach is one way to show responsibility. I've got 5 minutes left, and I'm just putting up the link to where the code can be found. And I'd really like to use that time to answer any questions.
Thank you for sharing this. And we were just in the Tech Policy Atlas, so I'd love to see that contributed to there. It's been interesting seeing New Zealand. I'm from Australia, so the New Zealand representatives here. I've learnt about Nat Huey as well, and seems to be very civil society focused, very much taking that whole of society. My question is, who does New Zealand see as civil society in that contribution? And during that consultation process, was there any key items that were raised from that perspective that was helpful?
Do I need a mic? Probably put people on mic.
So, I mean, I think in terms of who is civil society, that's a label that's used, and it's a good and useful one. For us, it's more important that as many voices, representative voices as possible, were and are still able to feed into that process. That better that it's defined by a need rather than an already organised construct. So it's as much, as much and as many as we can. Very hard to do that. We got 4,500 submissions in that public process, but I have to admit that a large number of them were from a single organisation that I won't name, that had a real passion for talking about what it was that we were doing. So yeah, that would be that definitely. Sorry, your second question?
Did they provide any insights that help shape that code from a civil society?
Yeah, I think absolutely they did, and it kind of raised a whole number of issues. There were quite a few sort of competing and contradictory issues. So there was broadly there was an awful lot of this doesn't go far enough, in terms of will it really squash the harm? Does it really do enough to hold the platforms to account? And at the same time, this is massive overreach. You're asking too much of the platforms, or you're giving the platforms too much say in what goes on. So some of those things are quite hard to kind of pass together, but certainly there are a lot of levels where that input was useful, raised issues that I think we hadn't seen before, and certainly as we go on in that development, there are an awful lot of questions that we still need to answer about those specific needs of those groups, and that is part of the development of the code.
I was just going to quickly add too, they're very clear about the separation of role around administrator, that oversight. They have very firm views about representation at the oversight board level, and those things that came from the voices from the consultation process.
We have a question from the local hub. We'll try and pass them through. I think that's how it works.
Good morning. Here from the local hub, University of Information Technology and Sciences, Bangladesh. So these gatherings, we just session this with the students, the youth, the majority of the populations. So my question is about the youth engagement and awareness program by Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance. I have also would like to introduce my two students. They have also a questions from the youth to the APrIGF community. Yes, ask.
Hello everyone, good evening. I have a question from, what are the cybersecurity policy for, especially for young women?
I have a question about engagement in cybersecurity policy.
Sorry. If you do not mind, we interrupt because I think
from the students for the young women's and the youth and the awareness and engagement programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, UITS. I think this the question may be for previous panel. Since we just want to clarify, this is the panel about online safety by brands and also by the team. So if you have a question about this, you can further ask in the chat room. And because the time it's already, maybe I'll just let you guys to wrap up first. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you want to wrap up because you've got a minute that's best.
Oh, yeah, no. Again, please reach out in the breaks. We're here all week. If you have any questions about voluntary codes, we're happy to share our experience. So I'm on LinkedIn, reach out. We're happy to talk about our experience.
Nothing from me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will be back in 10 minutes. So that will be fellows, our APrIGF, and also some Pacific fellows presentation. We'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.